Imagine waking up and realizing the industry that paid your bills, fed your family, and held your town together was slowly being taken away. That is what a lot of people hear when they hear electric vehicles. And that's why this conversation has to be bigger than range, charging, or gas prices. This may be the most comprehensive, balanced video you're going to see on why America is going to be slow to adopt EVs and why they may be okay. Because to really understand this, you have to look at everything, to how homes are wired, to why Americans like trucks and SUVs, to why losing a job in America can feel a lot different from losing a job in Europe. And by the end of this video, I'm going to explain why this all reminds me of something else America never fully switched to, the metric system. Now let's go ahead and get into this. Most of the EV conversation in America gets stuck around the same few topics: range, charging, price, battery replacement, gas prices, government mandates. And don't get me wrong, all of that matters. If a vehicle costs too much, people can't afford to buy it. If charging doesn't work, people won't trust it. If the range doesn't fit someone's life, they have every right to be skeptical. But those arguments are only the surface. The bigger issue is that America isn't just trying to change what people drive. America is trying to change the entire system around driving. And that is a much bigger deal than people like to admit. Gas vehicles fits into a world that most Americans already understand. You drive until the tank gets low. You pull into a gas station. You fill up in 5 minutes and then you keep moving. You know what miles per gallon means. You know what an oil change is. You know if something breaks in your vehicle, there's probably a mechanic nearby that can fix it. Electric vehicle changes that language. Now people have to think about battery percentage, kilowatts, kilowatt hours, charging curves, level 1 versus level 2 charging, direct current fast charging, charging networks, home charging, adapters, charging reliability, and so on. For some of us, it's not a big deal. I own EVs and I really enjoy learning this stuff. For a lot of normal people though, it sounds like a completely different world with a completely different language. And that doesn't make them dumb. It just means the old system is familiar and the new system feels like work. The same thing happens when people talk about costs. The EV owner will say you'll save money and fuel on maintenance. And in many cases, that's true. I've said the same thing. But the person on the other side may be thinking, that sounds nice, but I still have to afford the vehicle, the insurance, charger, the electrician, and maybe a panel upgrade before I even get to those savings. Both people can be telling the truth from where they're standing. That's why I always say multiple things can be true at once, and they often are. A homeowner with a garage can say EVs are cheaper and more convenient, while a renter with no home charging can say EVs are expensive and inconvenient. A city resident near heavy traffic can say cleaner vehicles would improve air quality, while an oil worker can hear EV transition and worry about feeding their family. A person with money may say, just buy a charger, while someone living paycheck to paycheck may hear this and say, I can barely afford the car. So the real EV debate isn't EV good or EV bad. That's too simple. The real debate is whether America can change a system that touches transportation, energy, jobs, household budgets, national security, and everyday life. And once you look at it that way, it becomes a lot easier to understand why America will move slower than other countries. Before we go any further, if you like content like this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps the YouTube algorithm push this information out to people who really want to understand EVs, charging, strategy, and where the industry is headed. And if you have access to the hype button, go ahead and hit that as well. Now let's go ahead and get back into this. A lot of people, including myself, look at EV adoption in other countries and ask, why can't America just do that? That sounds reasonable until you look at how different the starting points are. Europe has much higher gas prices than the United States. When gas is expensive, the savings from driving electric show up a lot faster, and the pressure to switch feels a lot stronger. Many European cities are a lot denser, public transportation is more available, and smaller vehicles a lot more common. That doesn't mean everyone in Europe has it easier, but the math does look different. Then there's the charging side, which a lot of Americans don't even think about. In the United States, a regular household outlet like this is 120 volts. That means basic level 1 charging is slow. Depending on the vehicle and a portable charger, you may only get around 1 kilowatt to 1.4 kilowatts from a normal household outlet. And for some people, that's enough. I charged my Chevy Volt on level 1 charging for 12 years and it worked out fine for my daily driving. But once you move into larger SUVs like my Rivian R1T or Rivian R1S with bigger batteries, regular outlet charging in America can be painfully slow. Europe and Australia have a different setup. Their regular household outlets are generally around 230 to 240 volts. So a basic outlet can provide a much more useful overnight charge than a standard American wall outlet. That matters because home charging is one of the biggest advantages of owning an EV. If somebody in Europe or Australia can plug into a regular outlet and recover enough range overnight for normal daily driving, they also may not need an electrician, new wiring, permits, or a panel upgrade. In America, a lot of people hear home charging and immediately think about all the extra costs. The charging, wiring, electrician, the permit, and maybe a panel upgrade. And that changes all the math before the person even gets the vehicle. Same EV, different country, different outlet, totally different experience. China's different for another reason. China EV push isn't just about climate. It's about industrial strategy, urban air pollution, reducing dependence on imported oil, and owning the next vehicle supply chain. China wants to dominate batteries, electric motors, mineral processing, low-cost manufacturing in the global EV market. For China, moving fast on EVs is a national strategy. Europe has its own strategic reasons for moving faster, especially because so much of Europe depends on imported energy. When oil supplies get threatened or when instability flares up around major shipping routes in oil-producing regions, countries that rely heavily on imported oil have a strong national security reasons to reduce gasoline dependence. America has a different starting point. We have domestic oil and natural gas production. We have refineries. We have pipelines. We have a huge gasoline distribution system. We have gas stations everywhere. We have internal combustion manufacturing experience. We have a massive domestic market. We also have cheaper gasoline than most of Europe, longer driving distances, slower regular household outlet charging, and a consumer base that buys a lot of trucks and SUVs. So when somebody says Europe is moving faster or China is moving faster, the answer isn't simply that Americans are stubborn. The better answer is that America has a different risk calculation. Europe and China are trying to escape imported oil and build energy security around electrification. On the other hand, America is being asked to disrupt an industry it already owns, and that's a major difference. Another reason America may move slower comes down to household risk. In a lot of developed countries, healthcare is covered through universal or near universal systems. People still pay for it through taxes, and those systems still have problems, but one major difference still remains. Losing your job doesn't usually mean losing your health insurance in the same way that it does in the United States. Here in America, job loss can hit a family in multiple directions at the same time. You lose income. You lose your health insurance. You may fall behind on rent or mortgage. You may miss a car payment. You may damage your credit. And if a medical bill shows up at the wrong time, it can make everything a lot worse. And I talked about this before. I had a minor injury when I was cutting my grass. A rebar hit my head and I had to go to the hospital, and I ended up getting 2 stitches. They did do an MRI also. That cost me $9,000. Thankfully, I had insurance, but without it, that could have been devastating. That kind of risk changes how people make decisions. When someone's financially comfortable, it's easy to say, buy the EV now and save the money over time. I've said the same thing myself, and I hear similar things in my comment section. But if a household is living close to the edge, long-term savings may not matter as much as short-term survival. I'm in a good financial position now, and I'm thankful for that. But I also know what it feels like to be on the edge. I lived in my vehicle before. I've had times where after I paid all my bills, I only had $20 left to make it through the rest of the month. So when I talk about people worrying about upfront costs, job loss, charging access, or survival, I'm not talking down to anybody. I understand that feeling. If you only have $20 left after paying all your bills, you are not thinking about a 10-year payback. The only thing you're thinking about is making it to that next paycheck. And that's why I say saving money requires money. If you have enough money, you can buy the EV, install a charger, upgrade your panel, add solar, replace your gas water heater with a heat pump water heater, and wait years for that savings to come back to you. But if you don't have that money up front, those savings are locked behind a door you can't open. The payback period only matters if you can afford the pay-in period. And that's one of the biggest problems with the EV transition. The people who can afford the upfront cost are often the ones that get the long-term savings, while the people that need those savings the most have the hardest time assessing them. Renters make this even more complicated. Home charging is a cheat code for EV ownership. If you have a garage or a driveway, you can charge overnight. An EV can be incredibly convenient. You plug in at night, you wake up charged, you avoid gas stations, and you pay home electricity rates and often reduced rates like I do with my electricity plan. Renters may not get that experience. Apartment dwellers may not have chargers. Street parking makes charging harder. Landlords may not want to install anything. Public charging may cost more and take more time. That means 2 people can buy the exact same EV and have completely different ownership experiences. For one person, it's freedom. For another person, it's friction. And that household reality matters. And it's the one reason America's EV adoption won't move evenly across income levels, neighborhoods, or housing types. The vehicle mix in America also makes the transition harder. Americans drive a lot, and we spend a lot of time in our vehicles. We have suburbs, rural areas, long highways, long commutes, road trips, and plenty of places where public transportation isn't a realistic option. For many Americans, a vehicle isn't just transportation. It's a work tool, a family hauler, road trip machine, a bad weather backup plan, and sometimes the only way to stay independent. That's one reason trucks and SUVs are popular here. People often buy vehicles for the life that they might need, not just the commute that they have. They may only tow a few times a year, but they still want the ability. And they may only take a couple of road trips a year, but they still want the range. And they may not need 3 rolls every day, but when a family comes into town or the kids have gear or they're traveling, the extra space matters. And that's very different from a market built around smaller vehicles, shorter trips, denser cities, and more public transportation. Electrifying small city cars is one challenge. Electrifying the trucks, SUVs, family haulers, work vehicles, towing vehicles, long distance road trip vehicles Americans actually buy is a much harder challenge. Bigger vehicles need bigger batteries. Those batteries cost more, weigh more, take more material, and require more energy to charge. Towing can reduce range, cold weather can reduce efficiency, and highway driving at higher speeds drains the energy faster. None of that means electric trucks and SUVs don't work. I own one of each. I know they work. But America doesn't just need EVs. America needs EVs that fit American life. An EV may be perfect for a homeowner with a garage and a predictable commute. That same vehicle may not fit someone that's towing a trailer through rural areas, parking on the street, or relying on public chargers because the apartment complex that they live in does not offer chargers. That's why EV adoption will happen in pockets. Some households will go electric early and love it. Others will buy hybrids. Some people will keep their gasoline vehicles longer. Plenty of people will wait until the used market improves, charging gets more reliable, or the vehicle that they need reaches a price they can afford. And that does not mean the transition failed. It just means America is adapting based on real-world use cases. And it's not just that Americans drive bigger vehicles or longer distances. We built an entire economy around keeping those vehicles fueled, serviced, repaired, and replaced. So when we change the fuel, you just don't change the car. You change where the money goes. And for some people, that money is their paycheck. When people talk about gasoline, they usually think about the pump. You pull in, fill up, and leave. But every gallon touches oil producers, refineries, pipelines, fuel terminals, tank truck drivers, gas station owners, convenience store workers, equipment suppliers, and local governments that depend on fuel taxes. And the maintenance side is just as big. Gas vehicles need oil changes, filters, spark plugs, belts, hoses, transmission service, fuel system work, exhaust repairs, catalytic converters, radiators, engine parts, and fluids. That money supports quick lube shops, independent mechanics, dealership service departments, auto parts stores, engine suppliers, transmission suppliers, and the workers behind all of it. EVs change where that money goes. As a consumer, I like a lot of those changes. I like not buying gas. I like waking up with a charged vehicle. I like avoiding oil changes. I like the simplicity of electric motors. But the money I save is money that used to flow through someone else's business. And that creates tension. The thing that EV owners love is the thing that some businesses fear. A quick lube shop does not benefit from fewer oil changes. A gas station doesn't benefit when people charge at home. A dealership service department has to think differently when routine maintenance changes. A town built around an engine or transmission plant has a real reason to ask what happens next. People resisting EVs don't always hate the technology. Sometimes they're just looking at their paycheck, their businesses, their town, and their future. They're asking what happens to us, and that question deserves a serious answer. And this is where the conversation gets more interesting. More EVs can actually help gasoline drivers over time. If more daily driving miles move from gas to electric, gasoline demand can be lower than it would have been otherwise. Oil prices depend on global supply, wars, refinery capacity, shipping routes, production decisions, and a lot of other factors. So I'm not saying prices will automatically collapse, but supply and demand still matters. Lower gasoline demand can reduce pressure on fuel prices, which may help people still need to drive trucks, SUVs, work vehicles, towing vehicles, and older gas cars. And that's why a mixed system may make sense in America. EVs can take over a lot of the daily commuting miles for people who can charge at home, while gasoline and hybrids continue serving use cases where EVs don't fit as well yet. And that doesn't stop progress. It may actually make the transition more practical. Charging infrastructure is another place America has work to do. People often say we need more chargers, and that's true, but more chargers alone won't fix the problem. Drivers need chargers that work. A charger has to be available, reliable, fast enough, easy to pay for, clearly priced, and located somewhere where people actually want to stop. Gas stations have had more than a century to become normal. People know how they work. They know where they're located. They know what to expect. And public charging is still earning that trust. One bad charging experience can shape how someone feels about EVs, especially if they already had doubts. If a charger is broken, blocked, slow, confusing, or the payment system doesn't work, that person may not say that charger was bad. They may say EVs aren't ready. And I had this experience just recently. If you check out my last video where I went to plug my vehicle in at a Tesla supercharger with plug-in charge, I never had any issue and my vehicle would not charge. And that kind of freaked me out. I'll leave that link at the end of this video. Reliability matters as much as charger count. Location matters too because charging is not the same as fueling. Gas is usually a quick stop. Charging may be 20, 30, 40 minutes, depending on the vehicle, the battery level, charging speed, weather, and conditions. And if I'm stopping for that long, I want more than just a charging plug. I want food, bathrooms, lighting, safety, and something else to do. And that gives places like Walmart, Target, Costco, hotels, restaurants, grocery stores, and travel centers like Wally and Buc-ee's a real advantage. With gasoline, the pump is the destination. With EVs, the charger may be the reason to stop somewhere else. And that shift affects gas stations, convenience stores, travel centers, retail businesses. Some will adapt, especially those in great locations. Others may struggle if they depend heavily on weekly fuel stops. The electric grid also has to be part of this conversation. Neighborhoods need enough capacity. Utilities may need to upgrade transformers. Apartment complexes need solutions. Rural areas need reliable fast charging. Charging stations need to work during heat wave, cold snaps, storms, and peak travel days. EVs can become a grid challenge or a grid asset depending on how we build the system. Smart charging, overnight charging, battery storage, vehicle-to-home technology can help, but most people are not living in that future yet. Right now, people just want to know if they can charge when they need to. Until the answer feels like yes for most people, EV adoption will be slower. And even with better chargers, the system could still end up looking messy and inconsistent for a long time. Not broken, just blended. Sort of like how we buy drinks in liters, measure road trips in miles, and still have both standard and metric sockets in the same toolbox. That brings me back to the comparison I teased at the beginning. The metric system. America never fully switched to the metric system, but we also didn't completely reject it. We integrated it. Metric is used in medicine, science, engineering, military applications, manufacturing, global trade, and certain consumer products. At the same time, everyday America still uses miles, gallons, pounds, feet, inches, square feet, and Fahrenheit. Your garage may still have standard sockets and also metric sockets in the same toolbox. Your medicine may be measured in milligrams, while your speedometer still shows miles per hour. You may go to the store and buy a 2-liter bottle of soda and then drive home on roads measured in miles. It sounds inconsistent, but it works because America is large enough and self-contained enough to keep the old system where it makes sense while using the new system where it's necessary. And that's the comparison. America may not switch to EVs the way some people expect. We may not wake up one day and suddenly live in an electric-only country. Instead, we may integrate EVs into the transportation system the same way we integrated metric into the measurement system. EVs may dominate certain use cases first: daily commuting, home charging household, city driving, delivery routes, fleet vehicles, second vehicles, short predictable trips, households with solar, people who want lower maintenance, drivers with reliable charging access. On the other hand, gasoline, hybrids, and plug-in hybrid vehicles may continue to serve other use cases for a long time. Towing, rural driving, long distance travel in weak charging areas, heavy duty work, lower income used car buyers, people who can't charge at home, households that need one vehicle to do everything. That doesn't mean EVs fail, it just means America may build a blended system. Electric, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, gasoline, and diesel, all overlapping while the balance shifts over time. And some people will hate that because they want a clean, fast switch. But America usually doesn't change that way. We layer new systems on top of old systems, then slowly shift the balance as the new system becomes more useful, more affordable, and more familiar. That may be exactly what happened with EVs. A slower EV transition may frustrate people who want change to happen quickly, but slower doesn't automatically mean failure. Slower can give the country more time to build a better charging network, bring used EV prices down, improve battery technology, retrain mechanics, prepare the grid, improve apartment charging, grow domestic battery supply chains, and let automakers figure out which EVs Americans actually want. It also gives bridge solutions time to grow. Plug-in hybrids can help people still want electric driving for daily use, but still need gasoline for long trips, towing, rural travel, or peace of mind. Workplace charging can also be a major bridge, especially for renters and apartment dwellers who can't charge at home. If somebody can charge while they're at work, that changes the whole ownership experience without requiring everyone to have a garage, a driveway, or a dedicated charger. For some people, a full EV makes sense today. For others, a hybrid or plug-in hybrid, workplace charging, or better public charging may be the step that gets them there later. That doesn't mean America should sit still. Moving too slow has risk too. China is not waiting. Europe is not waiting. Battery supply chains are being built right now. Manufacturing decisions are being made right now. If America moves too slowly, we can fall behind the next major vehicle technology. So the answer is not to reject EVs. The answer is to be honest about the transition. America needs to build EVs, build batteries, build chargers, strengthen the grid, develop domestic supply chains, protect workers, support renters, make used EVs easier to understand, train mechanics, and give people options. The future may be electric, but in America, the future may not be electric only. It may be electric, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, gasoline, and diesel overlapping for a long time. And that may be okay. If EVs take over the miles where they make the most sense first, they can reduce fuel demand, lower operating costs for many households, improve air quality in many areas, and help Americans compete in the next generation of transportation. Meanwhile, gas and hybrid vehicles can keep serving people whose lives, jobs, locations, or finances just don't fit EVs yet. And that's not failure. That's just realistic transition. So here's my final point. America will be slow to adopt EVs because America isn't just changing cars. We're dealing with oil, jobs, gas station mechanics, dealership, household budget, renters, rural America, trucks, SUVs, used car buyers, home charging, public charging, China, national security, fuel prices, safety nets, and the way this country already works. That's why the conversation has to be more nuanced. EV owners can be right that electric vehicles are cheaper to operate. And mechanics can be right that less maintenance threatens their business. City residents may be right that cleaner vehicles improve air quality. Rural drivers may be right that EV policies designed around cities may not fit their lives. Oil workers can be right that their communities depend on fuel demand. Lower income families may be right that they can't afford the upfront cost. Automakers may be right that America needs to compete with China. And critics may be right that China has a major advantage in battery supply chains. Multiple things can be true at once, and they often are. America did not fully switch to the metric system. We integrated it. We use metric where it makes sense, and we still use the old system where it remains embedded in our daily life and our culture. EVs may follow that same path. America will use EVs where they make sense. We'll keep gasoline hybrids and plug-in hybrids where they still solve real problems. And over time, their balance will shift, unevenly, but realistically. So when I say America won't switch to EVs quickly, I'm not saying EVs are bad. I own EVs. In fact, that's the only type of vehicle I would ever even consider. I believe EVs are the future. But America being slow doesn't mean America's wrong. It may mean America is doing what it's always done, taking the new system, integrating into the old system, and changing at its own pace. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. But that's all I have for today. I'd like to thank you for joining me once again, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.